Hello, everybody, and welcome to the video. I've been very lucky to be joined today by Mr. Brendan May. Brendan, thank you for making time out of your very busy diary, which we'll talk about very shortly, to join us today.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Chris.
So, those of you who don't know you necessarily and don't follow you on Instagram, LinkedIn, all these places, who are you, what you're about?
Sure. So I'm an estate agent first off. I've been in the industry for about 15 years or so and stumbled into it. And over the last 8 years or so, I've been trying, testing different self-employed ways of being an estate agent. And up until very recently, I've been more operationally involved. So training, coaching, recruitment, business growth, that sort of thing, with self-employed agents. But as of about a month or so ago, I have decided to get back in the fold on the tools again and be an agent. So yeah, 15 years agent, passionate about helping people and just trying to make the industry a better place, really.
Amazing. So you took the word out of my mouth there. So we had a quick chat before we started recording today, and I said, look, obviously normally I'd have this sort of conversation lined up, and then you've kind of thrown a spanner in the works by changing from one model to the next sort of thing. So I think it'd be remiss of us not to talk about if that's okay. So historically, let's go back a step before you've changed recently. So you've worked at corporate. I think you're at Countrywide a very long time ago, sort of thing. Is that your first job in a state agency?
Yeah. Countrywide was the first job, fresh out of uni. I actually came out of uni early, didn't really know what to do, and bought the cheapest suit I could find and walked down Kettering High Street, stumbled into Countrywide. So that was my first taste of the industry as a T-boy slash junior neg. And since then, yeah, I've experienced everything from, like I say, T-boy through to franchise owner, self-employed agent, and being on the board of a couple of companies too. But yeah, I think over the last probably about 10 years ago or so, I could see that things needed to change, and I was quite keen to explore what that looked like, because I take a lot of my inspiration and ideas from how the real estate industry is overseas. And I couldn't really see why we couldn't do that here. It was just bad habits that estate agency had got into. So yeah, with that, like you rightly said, I've been with a few different self-employed agencies, and up until very recently, been more involved in an operational point of view with training and coaching, and dipping my toe back in the water with selling houses. But the intention was always to be an estate agent, not just to be behind a desk, because that's the fun bit. So yeah, I think having experienced a few different companies and the structure and the pros and cons of each of those businesses, it made sense for me to break away, and join a new brokerage, but with a bit more autonomy, where I can build something a bit more long-standing now that I've tried and tested quite a few different ways of working.
So how long ago did you first go from being employed? So I'm sure you stayed at Countrywide for sort of the mandatory year to 2 years, then thought,
Mhm.
okay, I've had enough of this. That's just usually the fairly sort of standard story. So how long ago did you go first self-employed with whatever company it might be?
So first self-employed, and I'm going to put this in inverted commas, was when I was with Purple Bricks. I was part of one of the initial rollouts around Bedfordshire, Buckinghamshire, that area. This was back in 2015. And that was a real eye opener, and that just gave me a taste for what it could be to run your own diary and get out what you put in, as opposed to doing it entirely for somebody else. And yeah, it's a bit of a controversial topic, the whole Purple Bricks thing, but equally the amount that I think the industry has learnt and evolved over time really has to thank, I think, Purple Bricks for what they've done, and sort of, like I say, inspiring that change. So that was my first taste of self-employment, building a team out, and coaching, mentoring agents, and building that area at that point, to market leader with sale agreed and new properties coming to market within the space of about 12 months. So yeah, it was a good time, but just full on, and it wasn't sustainable for me personally, doing that much volume. Very quickly, you feel that you start almost burning out, and yeah, the volume of work is just too much to sustain on your own, which is why I left that company, that model, to then try and reevaluate how I can still be self-employed without having to do those numbers.
Was it a case that obviously Purple Bricks were quite famous for spending a lot of money on marketing and they sponsored the 2012 Olympics, I think it was, and loads of stuff
Yeah.
like that sort of thing. So sort of throwing cash and marketing quite away. Was that a case that you didn't have to do any sort of lead generation at Purple Bricks whatsoever? The phone would just naturally ring and it would come through to Diary because they were spending money on whatever, TV advertising, commisery, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty fair to say. I think there was an element of lead generation, but only because that's what I was used to. So I think that probably helped to the business growing so quickly when I was there, because there was a lot of organic incoming leads coming through, with people intrigued with this cheap offering to try and sell your house. But because I've been an agent for some time before that, it was drilled into me to go and knock on doors and talk to people as well anyway. So it was a combination of the two with why I think things took off. But yeah, it's a bit of a wake-up call going from having lots of organic leads with the likes of Purple Bricks, but also on the high street. You know, if you're working for a conventional office, you have lots of organic leads coming to you, to then having nothing, being a what I would now class as a conventional self-employed agent. So yeah, there was a lot to learn from it.
Yeah, I always find that's the biggest sort of, I wouldn't say learnings, but it's sort of the experience that people go through as they go from working at Countrywide, Connells, whatever the branch might be, sort of thing. And, the phone rings and people say, "Can you come and value my property?" You go, "Yes, certainly, no problem at all. I'll book that in for you." They then go self-employed, and it's like, where have all these people gone? Why is my phone not ringing?
Yeah. You very quickly start getting excited about withheld numbers rather than being scared and hiding from them. So yeah, it's a big change.
So let's go up to date where we are now. So you've recently changed from the property experts. So let's kind of say what it is. It's gone from property experts over to EXP. So obviously, I'm not expecting you to go into any kind of detail here about he said, she said sort of thing. But what sort of motivated the move from sort of one to the other?
Sure. I think first things first, I'd like to just say that when I was at the property experts, it was an exceptional time, and the setup that they've got there is fantastic. It really is subjective to the type of agent that you want to be, with which brokerage suits you. And I think when I was with property experts, it was a bit of a split role. It was partly agent, partly operational from a coaching point of view. And I think, for me, knowing that I was stepping away and wanting to step away from the more active coaching role, and focusing on building an estate agency business for myself, I think the offering with where I am now, with EXP, for me is more suited. I feel like there's a lot of autonomy that you get, and I think, being part of a global network, which since joining, I'm glad that it's been reaffirmed. But there are so many people you can tap into and learn from. And given that, like I said a few minutes ago, I take a lot of my learnings from overseas. This was actually something that is really quite interesting and exciting for me, because I can start seeing different strategies that people are using over in Australia or over in the States, largely with the States, I think, with EXP. But that was a big thing for me, and being able to still have my own personal brand without any real compromise, because I'm a big advocate of that. You can build someone's brand, and that's great, but equally, I don't want to be that guy that works for X company. I want to be, that's Brendan. He sells nice houses. That's what I want to be known as. So that was really the key driver for me. Really, is that slight bit more autonomy for me, and because I've experienced quite a lot, I don't believe that I need the traditional training and coaching that some agents may need in sort of different models. So those are the main reasons really for switching across.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And so sort of two levels to this question. How
Mm.
hard is it to change from agent one to agent two? So one part of that is how hard is it practically? Because obviously I imagine you had a pipeline and there's logistics around that. And do I get this and do you get that sort of thing? And second of all, how hard is it to sort of start afresh again and go, hi, I'm still the same guy, but just kind of different colors behind me effectively?
Yeah, well, yeah, interesting. I think, I'm sure it varies from brokerage to brokerage and the transitional process, but Ordinarily, it's quite straightforward, and yeah, there's very little friction when it comes to actually transitioning across with pipelines. I mean, property experts are very good to me. They've looked after me, and I've tried to make myself as easy as possible with them as well, and that was great. So yeah, typically it's a case that if you were to switch anywhere, then you would leave your sold pipeline where it is, but anything that's available, it's down to the clients and to you as to how you manage that, really. And I think for me, something that another reason why I love what I'm doing is that I do very low volume but high value work. So it wasn't a case that I had 15, 20 sales to pull across. I had two, but they were all of the fees that I work on are 2.5% plus VAT. There's other things involved with that. So it means that I can do low volume and still be able to look after everybody properly and give myself a life too. So with that, like I say, there are only two sold properties that I needed to leave behind, and then a handful that came across. But yeah, quite straightforward. I think you need to read the small print when you join a brokerage with what that process looks like. But like I say, thankfully, what I've experienced has been really straightforward and really seamless.
And so what's the practical aspect of it now you've relaunched, let's call it inverted commas, obviously under the EXP banner? Was that a hard conversation to have? Was that an easy conversation? And people going, oh, it's just Brendan, but he's just got a different thing below his name? What's been the experience on that side?
Yeah, I think the reality is, for me anyway, if you're an agent in this self-employed world, you probably should be going out as I'm Brendan, the estate agent, not I'm Brendan from X. And that's how I've always gone about things. I see the brokerage as a vehicle to help me list properties from an operational backroom perspective, and also to learn from, of course. But from a public's point of view, the brokerage is almost irrelevant. So with my existing clients and the people that I've been talking to prior, it's just been, hi, I've just joined the new brokerage. I'm still me. I'm still here. Come on over. And it's been really straightforward. So yeah, I mean, I had a house that was for sale with the previous company, and we switched it to the new one. So it had the new alerts on Rightmove and Zoopla and things with the new listing with a new badge on it. And I got contacted about 3 or 4 times through Instagram from potential buyers that have been watching it saying, oh, hi, I've just seen this house has just gone on the market with another agent, but I wanted to contact you first. But oh, thanks. Well, that's actually me. So thanks for the loyalty, but don't worry, I'm still here. So it's straightforward if you know how to manage the public's perception of what you want to be known as.
So is that an unethical estate agency hack there? If you want to get your property listings back to the top of Rightmove and recently listed, just change brokerage.
I mean, it's a long-winded and stressful
The
way to
scenic
go
route.
about
It's
it,
the
but hey,
scenic
you
route.
can relist your houses if you really want to do that. But there's plenty of other ways to do it, right?
So you mentioned earlier about sort of learning from this, mostly from the American model and the Australian model. What do you
Mm.
see in the future that we're going to kind of take on board more from sort of the US and Aussie versions?
I think the biggest thing that is starting to come around, it's still nowhere near as exposed as it needs to be, but the biggest thing for me is the collaboration side, working with other agents. With regards to with all of my properties that I market, I offer buyer referral fees. That doesn't mean that they have to come from agents that are within the brokerage that I'm working with. That can be any agent. That can be a high street agent that has a buyer. I can say, look, okay, look, because of what I'm charging, I can afford to split the fees and make it attractive for everyone. I mean, offering 1% as a buyer's fee is arguably more than most agents actually charge in my area for selling a house, let alone just bringing a buyer along. So that sort of collaboration is absolutely huge, but it's only worthwhile and it's only possible to scale if every agent jumps on board. It can't just be 10 agents across the country doing this. It needs to be the majority for it to actually catch on. So I think, yeah, don't be scared to invite other agents along with agent open houses. I do those with all of my listings. An agent's open is effectively an open house before it goes in the open market for buyers to see, where I invite proactive agents that think that they might have a buyer to come along, and we put some music out, get some drinks out, and just have a nice time. And I encourage people to share things through their social media platforms with their name on it. I'm not precious about my name having to be plastered anywhere. At the end of the day, if they bring a buyer along, it works out for everyone. So that type of collaboration is absolutely huge overseas. Why can't it work here? And the main reason why it can't is because the fees are so low typically. But that's probably the biggest thing I'm sort of trying to drive forward with what I'm doing at the minute.
And so I've seen you do this because I've seen when you were at the property experts. I can't remember the name of the property that you sold and listed on the market. It was quite a new place, and as if by magic, like the swarm of the property experts turned up one day, and it was social media this and social media that, and I'm here that, and it was suddenly everywhere sort of thing. It was just your instructions. So I certainly know you're doing that. What
Yeah.
what kind of what results have you had off the back of that? So I appreciate you're one person, and you obviously don't mention you kind of don't work in high units effectively. So have you had successes where other agents have sold properties for you historically through that method, or do you find that you offer it out and actually no one really bites on it, and therefore you just end up selling it yourself? What do you find?
Yeah, I mean, totally honest, I haven't had any agents offer any buyers that have successfully had offers accepted, but I have had viewings given passed across from agents outside of me and the brokerage. And I think that's probably because agents are still a little bit dubious and nervous about talking openly with sharing buyers and things like that. I think a lot of people are just suspicious of why are you actually doing it. But there are a handful of agents, and typically the ones that really actually catch on and see the benefits and the value in doing this are the ones that are self-employed agents themselves, because they can see that you need to really graft to make things work rather than just waiting for the phone to ring. So no, all of the properties that I've sold, they've all been me introducing the buyer, but at least I can say hand on heart to my clients that actually it's been exposed through Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, direct mail, buyer campaigns, and online at my own platforms as well, and word of mouth through coffee shops. All of these ways, I know that I've found the right buyer if every single type of buyer has possibly seen it, rather than just relying on Rightmove or my own social media accounts. So that's me giving that assurance. We might be spending a lot of money in the front end for marketing and for direct mail buyer campaigns and all of these sort of things, but at least we can like I say, we can rest assured that we've found the right buyer and we've done all we can to get the best price for them as well.
Do you think in estate agency, I know there's a big drive, especially recently, it's sort of collaboration over competition, and that's kind of the expression I hear quite a lot, sort of thing. Do you think that's a real thing? Now, what I mean by that is, do you think that's a veneer on the surface? Do you think there's a nice little shiny bit on the top of the surface, which is, yeah, competition, collaboration over competition, that's absolutely great. But really under that surface, there's a competitive estate agent who wants to sell that property. So I can speak from first-term experience here. So also I bought our book recently. That was great. And I got lots of phone calls off the back of it saying, amazing work, mate. That's really cool. Great. That's absolutely fantastic. But there's lots of people in the industry that I know and I think I'm quite friendly with who in no way contacted me. And I said, oh, message, I sent them a free copy and all this sort of stuff. And in no way was there any kind of like, well done, mate, or any kind of publicity, because they're, instead of the collaboration, they're looking at, crap, Chris has written a book. And that's competition to me. So that's not a good thing for me. So do you think that really in the estate agency world, that collaboration is like a small little veneer at the top, but really the competition is below the surface still?
Right now, I would say it's 99% competition. A lot of people talk about collaborating because it's the fashionable thing to talk about. It's the new shiny thing. But they don't actually practice it. If they do collaborate, it's actually more oh, you're in my office or you're within my brokerage, come and have a look, because they want the publicity, not because they actually want to try and sell the house. So yeah, I think at the minute it's almost entirely competition. But there are a handful of agents that leave ego at the door and realize that this is actually a sustainable way to move forward to actually bring buyers in. It probably about, I don't know, 2-3 years ago was probably the point where I did decide to leave my ego at the door, and just start thinking objectively at everything, rather than taking things personally. And if I see someone that's doing well, like with you, with your yeah, with your recent book, which is amazing that you've done that, that you've had that published and that you've shared it, especially doing it for free and at cost, right? That's awesome. I think I was one of a handful of people that joined your Instagram live. And it was, yeah, I'm sort of looking at that thinking, my God, you have done something amazing. We need to celebrate this and actually be part of it and congratulate people for doing things and stepping outside of their comfort zones. But unfortunately, that is still the vast minority of people in our industry, because it's hardwired that, you know, you hide everything. You don't want anyone to know what you're doing. And you know, if I'm working on something behind the scenes, then it's behind the scenes. I don't want anyone to know about it until it's perfect and it's out there. Because yeah, for me, I mean, I share ideas all the time with what I'm trying to do. And if I come up with an idea and it's not ready to roll out, I'll publicize it. It actually makes me more accountable. And the reality is, if I share value and knowledge and processes and strategies, it's only about 2% of the agent public that actually implement those things and look at it anyway. So people need to realize that there's a very select few people that will actually go and implement things that you're trying to do. So yeah, take a step back and leave ego at the door, and you will find things start to really come together for you quite quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. And I always find, this isn't me bigging myself up here, but if people say to me, Chris, what's working for you at the moment? I'll be like, I literally do this. And then this happens, and then they do this, and they do that. And that's working really well for me. If you want me to email it over to you, just send it on email. Like, I'm open book on that. I don't hide anything away from my business. It's pretty obvious what I do and what I don't do, sort of thing. But I find with a lot of people, it's very, as you said, this is my wall. This is what I'm doing. It's my little secret sort of thing. I don't want to tell anybody unless they steal my idea. And it's like, I'm really not that fussed about what you do, mate. Really not
Yeah,
that fussed about what you're doing. So,
yeah.
you're in the unique position now where you've sort of launched your own business sort of multiple times. So I suppose the question is, are you getting better at launching self-employed businesses on your own?
Good question. Uh, ask my wife; she might give a different response. But I think for me, I am in quite a privileged position. Maybe that's the right way to put it. Because I've helped lots of people, I've learned from lots of people, and having been away from being a full-on active agent for maybe the last 3 years or so, um, I've been able to start working on my personal brand and who I am, so that the public actually know who I am properly before actually going full on and opening the doors and saying, here I am, let me look after you. So yes, I do feel like I've got better each time at doing it, and I've just become far more structured with what I do, and I hold huge importance on following a process, but also trying new things at the same time. So for me, if I'm putting a house in the market, maybe I mean right now I've got 3 properties for sale, 2 sold, as it stands. There's a handful lined up to coming forward, but because it's such low volume that I document absolutely everything that I'm doing with each property that I deal with at point A. So point A, I mean having an appraisal, booking an appraisal. I'll tell everybody that I'm going over to Northampton today because I'm valuing a home that is in the region of £1 to £2 million. If anyone would like that information and know how this affects their home, get in touch. I'll do that through direct mail campaigns. I put that through social media. If someone approaches me saying that they want to buy a house and they're struggling because no agents have got anything for them over Instagram, let's say, as an example, I'll publicize that. I'll qualify them. I'll make them financially qualified as well. And I'll then start hunting out them as buyers. How can you help? And I think that's really important, regardless of how much volume you do. But the best way to get your name out there and become recognized quite quickly is almost a local household name, is to just make sure that everyone knows everything you're doing at every point, regardless of where it goes in the market. When a house goes in the market, there's 2.5, 3 weeks worth of content that I'm putting out there, drip feeding things through before a house even goes on Rightmove. Same once it's on the market. Over here doing a viewing today, use social media properly, and actually it's not all about social media. Like I say, it's probably about 35–40% of what I do is direct mail or knocking on doors. But Instagram has become a lead generating tool for me, as opposed to just a shop front. So yes, I've definitely got better. There's still certain things that I know I can improve on, but I think, yeah, I've got that purpose to do well. There's nothing else. There is no option but to succeed with this, because I don't have any other, irons in the fire. So if I don't sell a house, I don't live, right? So yeah, definitely got better over time, and less complacent. I think when you're an agent that has been in the industry for quite a while, and let's say you've been at management positions, senior leadership positions, it's very easy to just tell yourself that, no, I'm too big for this. I'm not going to go and knock on that door. I'm not going to phone this buyer. I'm not going to go to this agent's open, because it's beneath me. I've had people doing it for so long for me. And the reality is lead generation is not the most important, but it is hugely important. And you forget that actually you need to go out there and roll your sleeves up if you don't have a recognized brand and a recognized name. So I think that's what I've come to realize. I've known it for a while, but now I'm back in the field again, is just, sod the ego. Like I said, get out there, roll your sleeves up and find the business. Because it's not going to come to you unless you go and get it to start with.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I go through a sort of, they call it experiment, let's say task with the guys that I work with. I'm like, right, let's list down all the things we can do lead generation wise that's going to generate you leads into your businesses. There's list about 20 things in the end. It's, it's door knocking, it's leaflets, it's going to events, it's social media, it's direct mail, all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, right, well, score yourself how often you do these things. And it's like, yeah, don't do it. We're struggling for leads and you know the answers what you should be doing, but you're just not doing it.
Yeah. And they're finding reasons for why they're not doing it as well,
Yeah,
rather than just holding their hands up and saying, I'm just not doing it. Why
yeah,
not?
exactly.
I just haven't done it. It's just not important enough. You've got to take huge accountability for what you're doing when you're self-employed.
And is it you mentioned there about sort of, I'll paraphrase here, making a big deal about everything you're doing. So you're taking a proper, you go into a market appraisal, you make a big deal out of it, sort of thing. I
Mm.
think that's a sort of taking a little bit more from the sort of American model. Also, yeah, as British people, we're quite reserved and stiff upper lip and all that sort of thing. We don't like to celebrate our successes particularly. Do you think that's kind of a taking a little kind of feather from the estate of the American model and actually making a bigger deal out of I've got a market appraisal and that's kind of a message on its own. I've got a buyer, that's a message on its own. I've just sold this property, that's a big message. I've just, completed this one, that's a big message. So that effectively you might be dealing with less numbers, but if you look at the splash you're making off the back of those less numbers, it's massive.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's so important. I can't stress that enough. I think a lot of trainers or coaches and industry sort of heads in this self-employed sphere will just say, go and knock on doors. And that's all you got to do to build your business. Okay, once you've spoken to someone, what are you going to do? Or I'll just keep chasing them until they list the house with me or not. It's absolute rubbish. And those are typically people that have not actually experienced it from the ground up, that are offering that sort of advice. You're right. I think I think I've got quite a lot of Americanisms about me with how I work and who I am as a person anyway. So I'm a bit of an extrovert. I quite enjoy getting out and about and seeing people. That's one of the most enjoyable parts of my job. And I will tell everyone what I'm doing, and even things like if I'm expecting to get an offer come in for a house, I'll purposely wait for that phone call to actually take it in a public place so everyone hears what I'm doing. It's all that, being in front of everybody all of the time. And yeah, if you get a valuation appraisal, whatever you want to call it, why wouldn't you use that as an opportunity as well? Not only to talk about that appraisal that you're going over to, but also handwrite a load of notes to drop through all of the local houses that are in the same street and just saying that, look, I'm going to be seeing a potential client on your street. Can't give too much away. However, if you'd like to know more, let me know. Do those little handwritten notes, make an effort, and use your time wisely. If you're in an area, target that area.
Yeah, absolutely. I think whenever I talk to anyone who's launching their business, they say, what's going to work for my business? I'm like, I've got no idea. Absolutely no idea what is going to work for your business. So therefore, for the first 3, 4, 5 months, let's try absolutely everything we've got at our disposal, from door knocking to notes to social media to YouTube to whatever it may be. After 5, 6 months or so, we'll take a step back and go, right, this stuff has been brilliant. Let's double down on that stuff as much as we possibly could do. But that leaflet malarkey hasn't been working at all. Let's cut that out completely, sort of thing. So you've got
Yeah.
no idea what's going to work for your business until you try it. So therefore,
Mm.
you need to try everything to start off with. So therefore, you can then take a step back and go, actually, let's keep the winners and ditch the losers.
It's also very difficult to measure what is working and what isn't as well. Because I mean, I one of the homes that we've just had an offer coming on. The way that came around as a listing in the first place was someone that was watching me on Instagram for months without me realizing. They weren't following, they weren't engaging in anything, and they just got in touch and dropped me a message saying, "Look, I've got this house we're struggling to sell. Would you consider selling a home like ours?" And that's how it came along. I had no idea that they were watching anything of what I'm doing. I don't know. I wouldn't be able to tell you how many letters I've mailed out or dropped through people's doors. But yeah, I got a phone call a couple of weeks ago from somebody that has a 16,000 square foot home that's likely to be in the region of £5 million. And no one had contacted me off the back of those letters. And the letters that I actually sent out were about 6 months ago. How can you measure what's working and what's not? You've just got to do everything. Just do everything. Cutting things out, yeah, I guess you can look at it that maybe you don't have the budget or the spend to do absolutely everything or the time to do everything. But the reality is, if you're not everywhere, everyone's not going to see you. So it really depends on what your goals are as a business owner or just a general estate agent, with where you're aiming. What do you want? What do you want to do? What type of an agent do you want to be? And then just double down. But yeah, there's not one or two sort of silver bullets that I have. I do everything, and you have to do everything.
Yeah, it's that sort of omnipresent marketing. It's like I drive down the street, I see a board. I go online, I see an advert. I go to my post box, I see a leaflet. On its own, probably doesn't do that much. But you add it all together, and you're like,
Mhm.
actually, this guy's everywhere. This
Yeah,
this
yeah.
guy's like, how many houses has he sold around me? When really, you probably just sold one or had
But
one for
people think
sale.
it's
You just,
lots. Yeah,
you
yeah.
just made a massive splash about it, made a huge deal about something that actually other agents would do, maybe do one leaflet about if they're lucky about, and maybe change the board if they're lucky. But really, you've just done 10 things off the back of it to say, look how amazing I am, because you're the kind of the king of your own PR of your own business.
Yeah, exactly. And another example of this, exactly this, is last week I set half a day aside to go and knock on some doors in my local area of houses that are on the market, and I also had a couple of different social media ads that were out, targeted campaigns, on behalf of buyer campaigns through Instagram, and I've got lots of leads come through that. But one person reached out saying, "I've got this house for buyer five." Of the five that were on this post that I had sponsored and boosted out. And after a little bit more digging, it transpired that the seller of that house was someone that I was about to knock on their door in the afternoon. I'd already written out the handwritten note that I was going to be putting through their door if they weren't in, and I had my spreadsheet in front of me whilst I was messaging this potential seller that had reached out to me. And I took a photo of everything literally on my lap in front of me saying, "You will not believe this." And this probably sounds like a sales pitch, but I was about to knock on your door this afternoon. The timing of this is just bizarre. So I'm going out to see them next week. And it's those little things that, yes, you've got to do everything, be omnipresent, but tell people the coincidences. "Oh my God, that's amazing that you saw me through here. You know what? I was actually just about to go over to you." It just reinforces that you're doing what you say you're doing rather than just marketing.
Yeah, I think that no one's going to be the bigger cheerleader for your business than yourself. Maybe
Exactly.
maybe your mum, but she's probably not going to do the social media post you want to look at something. But nobody's going to give you say, this is what I've done, this is awesome, this is I've helped these people, this is what I'm looking for. No one's going to do that in any kind of size and format that you should do as a business owner. It should be your number one fan should be yourself, which sounds really arrogant, but definitely the way to do it.
100%. 100%.
Good. I could talk to you all day, Brendan, to be honest with you. I could talk about it all day, but we'll wrap things up there and leave people wanting more of that. Okay. Thank you
Yeah,
so much
sure.
for your time today. Obviously, I'll take best of luck with the launch, but it's in the bag, isn't it? So well done for what you're doing so far. Sounds absolutely amazing. And thank you for your time today.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure. Thanks so much, mate. And again, congrats on the book launch. I'm really, really pleased for you, mate.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a good plug. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Cheers, mate.
Brendan.